Korean Buddhist meditation essay. The monk Beop Jeong asks me. Non-possession. Monk Beop Jeong spent his entire life embodying the concept of non-possession. First published in 1976, Beop Jeong's book of essays, Non-Possession, sold 3.3 million copies in South Korea alone. However, as it was published long ago, not many people remember what writings were included in that book. Beop Jeong left a will stating, "Do not publish any more books under my name." As a result, many of Beop Jeong's writings, including Non-Possession, can no longer be acquired through bookstores. Consequently, people are either purchasing used copies of Non-Possession at high prices or continuing to read it by borrowing from libraries. Beop Jeong's will was to not publish books, not to stop reading them. Therefore, learning his spirit and mind contained in the books is necessary to create the clear and fragrant world and hearts that Beop Jeong dreamed of during his lifetime. The title Non-Possession is also the name of an essay included in the book. From the essay, we can understand the beginning of Beop Jeong's philosophy of non-possession. At the time, Beop Jeong was staying at Daeryhyun in Bongjunsa Temple, Seoul, working on compiling a Buddhist dictionary. One day, a monk sent 2 pots of orchids to Beop Jeong. After that, Beop Jeong carefully cultivated the orchids. He bought and read books about orchids and even purchased special fertilizer said to be good for orchids. In summer, he would move them to cool shade, and in winter, he would deliberately lower the room temperature. Thanks to this loving care, in early spring, the orchids would bloom with pale green flowers and a subtle fragrance, delighting Beop Jeong's heart, and the orchid leaves were always as fresh as a crescent moon. Everyone who visited Daeryhyun invariably liked the vibrant orchids. One summer day, after the monsoon rains, Beop Jeong left Daeryhyun to meet a senior monk. By midday, the sun shone brilliantly after days of rain, and the forest resonated with the cries of cicadas. While walking, he suddenly remembered with alarm that he had left his cherished orchids outside in the yard. The image of their leaves wilting under the scorching sun flashed through his mind. Beop Jeong hurriedly returned to Daeryhyun. Sure enough, the orchid leaves exposed to the hot sun were drooping. Beop Jeong, feeling sorry, fetched well water to moisten them, and the orchid leaves barely raised their heads. From that incident, Beop Jeong deeply felt with his whole body and mind that attachment is suffering. He realized that he had been pouring all his heart into the orchids. Since he started cultivating the orchids, he couldn't freely go on journeys like other monks, and when he had to leave the room briefly, he had to leave the window slightly open for ventilation. There were also many times when he left the orchid pots outside and had to come back to bring them in. Beop Jeong realized that such obsession was attachment. A few days after that incident, a friend came to visit Beop Jeong. Beop Jeong readily handed over the orchids to him. At last, Beop Jeong was freed from his attachment. Having cared for them with utmost devotion for nearly 3 years, how could there not have been feelings of regret and emptiness when parting with the orchids? Nevertheless, Beop Jeong said he felt a liberating sense of freedom, as if he could fly. From then on, Beop Jeong made a commitment to himself to discard one thing each day. Beop Jeong had come to understand the meaning of non-possession through the orchids. In the essay Non-Possession, Beop Jeong writes, "Human history, in one sense, can be seen as the history of possession. Not content with owning objects, people even strive to possess other people." In a later essay collection, Flowers Bloom on the Mountain, Beop Jeong further elaborated on the concept of non-possession. Non-possession does not mean having nothing. It does not mean living as a destitute pauper. Non-possession means not owning unnecessary things. Beop Jeong's concept of non-possession is similar to the spirit of minimalism. which emphasizes minimizing possessions. Reading the essay, Non-Possession, I was struck by Beop Jeong's realization that attachment is suffering. This notion reminded me of Simone Weil, French philosopher and social activist, who shared her thoughts on attachment in her book, Gravity and Grace. When we cling to something, it is because we believe that without possessing it, it does not exist. Indeed, we tend to think that things only truly exist when we possess them. The objects of possession can be not just people or things, but also love, beauty, honor, or power. Attachment is the intense obsession to make all these things our possessions, unable to recognize their inherent existence and value as they are. For a person caught up in the attachment to possession, their world consists only of what they possess. Things they don't possess either become objects of further attachment or simply don't exist for them. That's why, even though modern society may be materially abundant, our lives become desolate and impoverished. Conversely, if we don't possess, if we don't have the attachment to possess, all things in this world reveal their existence before our lives, and we can share all their meanings and values together. At the end of the essay, Beop Jeong says, "The fact that when you have nothing you finally possess the whole world is another meaning of non-possession." The monk Beop Jeong asks me, "What are you attached to? Are you attached to what you own or to what you want to own? Perhaps to something you once owned but have since lost? What has your attachment brought you? Happiness or suffering? Abundance or poverty? Joy or despair?